Hi, this is Suniel Makh, the UX UI designer here at SchemeServe, and I'd like to take you through this presentation to talk about a few things that are going on this side of the business. What I'll be discussing and covering is UX and UI and what the difference is between those two things, the common design language that we're developing. I'm also going to talk about brand identity, and then what's next on our roadmap, what we've got coming up. So first and foremost, UX and UI, and what's the difference between the two. Now, these two terms get used interchangeably a lot. You hear people referring to UX and UI, and it's almost like the same thing, but there is a difference between the two. And I want to explain what that difference is. UX stands for user experience, and that's how someone uses a website or an interface. The UI is the user interface, and that's how it looks and feels. That's more the style of it. To give you an analogy, I want to just show you this quick image. So when we look at these ketchup bottles, the UI of the ketchup bottle is how it's been designed, the branding of it, the way the label's been put on there, where the label is, the styling of that label. The UX in this instance is how the ketchup bottle actually works. So with the glass ketchup bottle, you have to bang the bottom of the bottle to try and get the sauce out. You have no control over how much sauce comes out. You just have to use it and hope for the best. Whereas with the squeezy bottle, you can control the flow of sauce that comes out. So in this instance, the squeezy bottle has the better user experience, the better UX, because it works in a way that helps the user get to the end goal easiest. So again, when we're talking about UI, we're talking about user interface, how things are designed, how they look and feel, and UX is how they actually function and whether the user can use it in a way that's intuitive and that's helpful for them. Just to delve a bit more deeper into that, so UX and UI are almost like two sides of the same brain. They work hand in hand together, but they're different at the same time. One and the other are so closely interlinked. So UX is concerned with the interaction design, wireframing and prototyping, so creating wireframes to test on people. It's also concerned with information architecture, so which information is placed in which place on an interface or a website so it can be logically understood. Also user research, so understanding the user's needs, understanding their behaviors and building something that meets that need. And scenarios, so how users will be using something, building scenarios and then building wireframes, prototypes or interactions that fulfill that need. UI, user interface on the other hand, like I mentioned, is concerned with the more visual aspects of things. So the visual design, the colors, graphic design work, how things are laid out, and even typography, what kind of styles are used, what kind of typography is used. But it's more to do with what you see. And what you see is really the tip of an iceberg. So UI tends to sit at the tip of the iceberg. It's what you can see, visual design. But underneath that lies the function and the solution, the concepts, the ideation and the discovery. And I'll go into all those in a bit more detail. But with UI, mostly you can see it because you go into a website and the first thing that strikes you is how it looks. But there's a lot of work underneath that to figure out how it functions and what functions in what particular way. And that's the user experience. Generally, the process that we go when we design a website or an interface is a three-step process, which is design, discover, and optimize. So starting with design, that's where we understand the business objectives, the user needs, and the technical capability. What the discovery phase is concerned with is finding out what the business objectives are, what are we trying to achieve here for the business, looking at focus groups and customer groups to understand how they use something, what their pain points are, what their requirements are, and their needs. That's really important to do that so that we build something and we don't start designing without taking those needs into consideration. Also, as part of that is client interviews, which is similar to focus groups. Again, understanding the needs of the client at a deep enough level so that we can build something fit for purpose. Building user cases as well, so understanding what users will be doing, the scenarios that they'll be using a website or an interface under, and again, building something around that. Competitor research, so important, is to understand what's going on, not just in our industry, but also outside of our industry as well. Because through competitor research, we can look at what's working and what's not, and also innovate on what's currently available. I find it so important not to just do competitor research within the sector that I'm working in, but also outside of it, because there's so much innovation outside of the industry that we work in. There's so many new things happening, and we can take a look at other industries and see the innovation, see the functionality that they've got outside, and look at how we can change it and adapt it to our industry and our platform. Personas as well, discovering and understanding the personas. Who are the types of people that are using this? What are their job roles? What are they doing? How are they using it? What do they expect? Knowing all these things in the discovery phase means that when we do move on to the design phase, we're moving on with the right amount of knowledge, with the right amount of information to be able to create a design that's fit for purpose. So once the discovery phase is done, we move on to design. And this is both UX and UI design. This is about creating the most effective and efficient design using best practice, creativity, and innovation. So this is where we take all the information we've learned in the discovery phase, and now we start building concepts and ideas and wireframes and retesting them on the clients that will be using them. Then we move into user experience design and user interface design. So that becomes more relevant now because we understand the needs of the business, the clients, and everyone else that we've looked at in that discovery phase. Once we've finished the design phase and we're ready to ship the solution, we move on to the optimize stage. Now, design work should never really be finished. UX and UI work should never be completely done where it's never looked at again. The optimize phase is where we test, learn, evaluate, and evolve. So this is where we use things like conversion rate optimization to test variations of the site against each other. We're always looking to continually improve the site, to continually improve the design. Technology and website design and UX design is moving at such a pace. If we're not constantly evolving it, testing and learning and evaluating it, we're going to end up with a solution that's outdated pretty quickly. So innovation becomes so important here as well, because as times move on, as users get more accustomed to how technology works, we have to innovate and we have to keep pace with the changes that are happening around us. A/B and multivariate testing. Now, what A/B testing is imagine you've got a website and you send 50% of people to that website. You send 50% of people to a variation of that website. So things on the variation might be laid out different. There might be different colors, and you see which variation is getting the better results. So in variation 1 versus variation 2, you test and you learn from the data which is the most effective design. The winning version goes on to be the live version, and then you create new tests and new variations again. So that's about continual optimization. It's not about creating a design and thinking, yes, we're done, let's leave it. There's naturally a point where we have to move on to other projects, but we'll eventually want to re-optimize those pages as time progresses. Hypothesis building, again, looking at what we've got on the website, on the interface, and building hypotheses around what the pain points potentially are, around hypotheses around how we improve things, and then putting that into test as well. So building these hypotheses based on our users and the data that we're seeing, and then testing those hypotheses out and learning and evaluating constantly. The role of UX specifically, I really believe, and UX is a collaborative process producing the right outcome for the requirements. UX and user experience isn't something that just sits in a corner on its own. It's not something that you get past tasks and projects to do and you just do it as a user experience designer. User experience sits at the heart of the business. For me, it's involved in all areas. It needs to respect and listen to all areas to be able to produce the best possible outcomes. And UX really sits in between the 3 areas that's on this slide here. Firstly, the business needs. UX needs to understand what are the business objectives, what are we trying to achieve here as a business, what are the needs of the business, what are the goals of the business, what are the objectives of designing something. If we understand from a business perspective what is needed from the UX, what we're trying to achieve, we can build something that keeps that in mind, which is fundamentally important. Not only is business needs important, but also the user needs. What does the user expect and need from a piece of functionality, from a piece of the interface, from something that they're interacting with? If we don't consider the user's needs and only consider the business needs, we're going to miss the mark because we're not creating something that's right for the user. So the user's needs and understanding that at a deep level becomes so important and crucial to be able to produce something that's right. The third part of this diagram is the technical capability. Do we have the technical expertise to be able to pull off what we're designing? There's no point me designing something that theoretically is great if we do not have the technical capability to actually implement that. So this is why it's so important for UX to consider and sit in between all of these areas. It needs to consider the business needs, the user's needs, and technically what's possible. Once all those needs are understood, that's when UX design is going in the right direction and is going to produce results that's right for all those different aspects. Principles of UX. So when we're designing things from a UX standpoint, there's some certain principles that we want to adhere to. And first one of that is meeting expectations. And that means that when a user comes onto an interface, a website that they're using, that things function in a way that they expect. There is nothing more frustrating than clicking on something or doing something on a website and it does something completely different to what you expected it to do. We don't want to make the learning curve for our interface or our website long. We want to make it easy, simple, that you don't have to really think about it, that things just happen the way they expect it to happen. We want to make sure that the users are able to use it in a way that just feels smooth. So meeting expectations when we're designing UX pieces is so important. Giving the user the right tools at the right time. So this is about when they're on the website or when they're on their interface and they need to do something, are those tools available for them? Are those filters, those buttons, that search ability available right there and then? Because if they're not, it's going to become really frustrating because they're trying to do something and we're not helping and supporting them at that time. Thirdly, intuitive innovation. I put the word intuitive before innovation here because it's so important for us to innovate. It's so important for us to lead the industry in terms of what we're producing. We don't want to follow, we absolutely want to lead. But with innovation, we need to make it intuitive still. We need to make sure that when we produce something that's different, that's new, that it's still intuitive to use. We don't want to make it difficult just because it's innovative. Our innovation should be simple to use, but really exciting to use at the same time, because they do something new, which is great, and it's new in the industry, new and exciting for our users, but it does it in a way that's very simple to use. Cross-device. So we have to respect the fact that people are multi-device users, laptops, desktops, phones, tablets, and we need to build experiences that are fit for purpose. The way we use a desktop is very different to the way we use a phone. So we need to design experiences that respect those differences and that are right for the device that people are using it on. So if it's on a phone and there's native functionality on that phone, we should take advantage of that. If it's a desktop and we have more screen real estate, we have more options available to us, then we design based on what the user's using. Simplifying a journey. The general principle here is make things as simple as possible and as quick and easy to use as possible. Let's help the user get from A to B in the least amount of steps. Why take 5 clicks to do something if 1 click will do it? It's about shortening and simplifying a journey and getting the user to where they need. We all know that when we're using a website, our patience is pretty low. We're not going to spend time on something that takes too long because we want to get to our endpoint as quick as possible. So we need to facilitate that, and simplifying the journey is a crucial UX principle in this regard too. And finally, just to elaborate on that point, removing frustration. Again, our patience levels are low. The time people will spend on a website trying to figure it out is small. If it doesn't do things the way it's expected to do it, if it doesn't do things the way we want it to do it, we're just going to leave and we're not going to enjoy the experience and we're not going to return. So looking at those pain points in an interface and a website and understanding what could be frustrating about this user experience, just like the ketchup bottle at the start. What's frustrating about the glass bottle is you cannot control things. So this is why the squeezy bottle was invented, to remove that frustration. But in a website and interface perspective, where are the areas that are pain points? Where are the areas of frustration? And how do we remove them so we make this interface as smooth and as easy and as enjoyable to use? Because we want things to be enjoyable just as much as they are simple. So now I'm going to talk about a common design language. Now, a common design language is a set of rules and guidelines that heightens the level of harmony in the digital ecosystem. So what that means is a common design language is a style and a guideline on how that style should be rolled out. It's about standardization. It's about creating a unique visual identity and one that is consistent across all platforms, all interfaces, and all websites under our brand. So rather than having things that look different in all different places, we have a consistent design language that is good to look at, but also follows principles so that it stays consistent and uniform. This also helps so that whenever we decide to build additional pages, we have a style ready to go. We might need to work on user experience, but the style will be a lot easier to implement. So in the image I've got on the right-hand side here, it's starting to show the development of our common design language. So it's starting to show how buttons would look, what typography we're using, what weight of typography, whether it's bold, whether it's regular, the size of that typography, how hyperlinks will look, how icons will look, the color scheme that we're going to be using. All these things are being built into a design language so that we know how things should look and feel right from the get-go. The benefits of a common design language is, number one, recognizability. So when you go onto an interface under our brand, when you go onto a marketing site, an interface, a platform, under SchemeServe, you will know where you're at straight away because you'll recognize it because it's consistent, which is the second point. Consistency is so important. If a button looks different on different pages, you're going to have to think about where to click. What we want to do is reduce the cognitive load, reduce the amount of thinking time it takes to use a website, and that is done by keeping things consistent. If a button always looks the same, you don't have to think twice about what to click next because you know all buttons look like this. Same with hyperlinks, same with text. It's if you know and understand straight away what's going on a page because you're familiar with it, it's easy to use. Authenticity, it helps us be authentic and unique. It helps us create an identity that's true to ourselves. Ease of enjoyment and ease of use and enjoyment. Again, once things are consistent, it's very easy to use because you know what to expect. It's enjoyable as well because it doesn't take thinking time. It's intuitive. You can concentrate on the content that's important to you rather than trying to figure out how to use a website. Efficiency and cost. So efficiency and cost, why that becomes a benefit of the common design language, again, is because when we produce a page or a new section on an interface or a website, we already have a few steps forward in how it needs to look because we've got these guidelines. It also means that if another designer picks this up or picks up a piece of work that needs to be done, they can look at the guidelines and say, I don't have to think about how to design this so much because I've got principles here that I can adhere to. It reduces the amount of time that now needs to be taken on those pages because we've got guidelines that we can follow, which ultimately reduces the cost. Stability and flexibility. So again, common design theme and language creates stability across the ecosystem that we're building, but it also still allows for a little bit of flexibility, which is so important too. We don't want to be so rigid where we can't change things, because if we've got a new piece of functionality that we don't have design principles for, we can flex those design principles and use them as inspiration to create and evolve our common design language. It should be continually evolving. There should be guidelines, but there should also be the room for flexibility. And it also allows for innovation as well, because as we innovate and create new things, the common design language will support that innovation in terms of being able to give it an interface that is easily understood. So we might be creating something really new that people haven't used before, but the common design language will help users be able to use it quicker because they'll know what the different elements mean. So test, learn, evolve. We talked about that in the process about optimizing, testing, learning, and evolving. And again, I just want to talk a little bit more about this because it's such an important part of the UX and UI work. It's such an important part of how we're going to be developing things going forward. We'll be using data and testing to prove hypotheses, not opinions. Now, the reason why this becomes so important is, especially with UI and UX, different people use it and will have ultimately different opinions on how things should work. They will see things and there'll be a lot of opinions. What What testing does is it allows us to have data that we can learn from and understand, and the data will be able to cut through the opinions. We'll be conversion rate doing conversion rate optimization, and again, that means looking at how many people click certain elements or how many people use certain elements, and looking at how we can optimize that further to get more people doing the things on the website that we want them and need them to do. We'll be testing our designs on users and on our customers, and using their feedback and their data to inform our decisions going forward. We'll also be developing new features based on our users' needs. So by listening and understanding the pain points, understanding the needs of the user, understanding what functionality would help them develop their business and fulfill their needs, that information is like gold dust, because once we have that, we can build solutions around it. Learning from feedback as well. That's data feedback and opinion feedback, taking that in context, taking consideration for all those things, and learning and building new solutions. And the final point, innovating based on the testing, based on hypothesis, and innovate with the point in mind that we want to solve problems here. We want to look at things and think, okay, we want to solve the problem that the person's facing. How do we do that? What can we do? How do we think out of the box to be able to create new solutions that are leading edge? Testing, learning, evolving is also about never sitting on our laurels and think that we've done a good enough job, that we can't learn from it. We always want to be learning. We always want to be improving. We want to create designs and then challenge ourselves to beat the design, to produce something better. And that's the mindset that we need to be in, to continually want to evolve and optimize. So no matter how good it is, there's always room for improvement. I want to come on to talk about brand identity and personality now, because this actually sits above everything that we're doing: the brand strategy, the brand tone of voice, the personality, values, and identity. So when we're talking about our brand identity, we're talking about the brand tone of voice, our personality, and our identity. We want to be able to show our clients and customers who we are, what we stand for, and our values through our creative and design work. So this, as I say, is a strategic thing that sits above everything that we're doing. A brand identity and personality is all about understanding the clients and customers, first of all, both their pragmatic and emotional needs, so that we can empathize, connect, and resolve, and build a brand identity and a personality that helps show that we understand our clients and customers, not just what they're thinking and what they need in terms of for their business, but emotionally what they need as well. How do we support them to build their businesses, and how do we build an identity and personality that supports and understands and connects with the people that are using our platform and service? Brand identity is also about a clear, consistent brand personality, which includes our position and our values, which engages our clients. It's much more than just aesthetics. It's a design system and output which represents who we are. It's more than design, because it's about a fundamental value and identity, and that shines through the design work, absolutely, and it's very visual in design, but it also goes beyond just design. It goes into how we show ourselves as a business, creating a why for our business that goes beyond the what and the how. So giving people a reason to believe in SchemeServe. I'll come into talking about the difference between the why, the what, and the how in a second. And allowing our brand personality to shine through our creative output, creating and maintaining our own unique style, language, and image that shows who we are and connects with our users. We want to create a platform and interface that is leading edge and that people believe in. We also want our personality and brand to shine through. That will give us a unique selling point in the market, that we stand for something. We not only know who we are, but we stand for that, and we show that. We don't just want to be another bland company with no personality. We want to let our personality and identity show. We want to showcase what our values are, what our identity is, who we are as a business, why we're here. We want to be able to push that forward, because that will connect with our customers a lot deeper than just the pragmatic, logical things that we produce. Our design values are in line with our overall brand values, and they have to be. Everything that I want to produce as a designer, I want it to have a value. I want the design values that I design to be in line with the brand values. And so what I've done here is I've created our brand values which are curious, responsible, human, credible, and swift. But I want to show what that means in the design world, because ultimately the design values is about building an insurance platform with best-in-class UX and UI, creating an elegant, intuitive experience that improves people's lives. That is the objective for the design work that we produce. So in terms of, I'll go through a few of these, and I'll send out this deck with the video so you can look at this at your own time. But in terms of one of our brand values is being curious. How does that manifest itself in the design world? Well, it manifests itself by us asking continually, how could this be even better? Having that curiosity, willing to challenge and test our own assumptions, being curious to create a test and learn culture, and looking for and encouraging client feedback and insight. And also curious enough to continually look for innovative solutions and features. We don't want to be in a situation where we're following people. We want to be absolutely at the cutting edge, leading this industry forward. Responsible. Our designs have to be respectful for the differing user needs and take into consideration accessibility, legibility, and the user's requirements. We also want to be responsible to make sure that users don't have to spend a long time learning how to use a site. The learning curve should be minimal, and make it so easy to understand and intuitive. Human. So that's one of our brand values. It has to be one of our design values. And in the design world, it comes out as everything that we design should be as easy and human to use as possible. Put the users first, put the human beings who are using this first. Design in an approachable, friendly manner that's not over formal or clinical. And in our industry, there is a lot of industry terms that have to be used, but we also want to use human language where possible and make sure that we're not just this clinical business that's overly formal. We want to make sure we connect. Our business is about people, and we want to make sure we're able to connect, and our tone of voice is a huge important part of us showing our human side. Credible. The design work has to be credible. It has to be up to date with the latest trends and best practices. We will continually be studying and improving our knowledge, creating design solutions with the best practices in mind, creating leading edge solutions, and hopefully, eventually, and I'm sure we will, produce award-winning, worthy design solutions. Swift. This is a really important design value as well. Reduce the amount of clicks it takes to complete an action. We need to be swift. We need to help people get from A to B as fast as possible. Otherwise, it's a frustrating user experience. Make users' lives easier, remove frustrations, and help them get to where they need to get to as quickly, as elegantly, and as enjoyably as possible. So I talked a little bit more about why we need to create a why, and this is what I mean by that. There's a concept called the golden circle that's developed by someone called Simon Sinek. Now, what he says is that companies need to understand their why. Most companies know their what and their how, but not many develop or know their why. Now, the what is easy. It's what a company does. For example, they sell products, and it's the products and services that they sell. For example, Apple, amazing brand, but what they do is they make electronics. That's simply what they do. How they do it and how a company does what they do, the ways they do it, the ways they provide those services or products. So again, for Apple, they make things that are beautiful and easy to use. That's how they do it. They take the electronics, they make them beautiful and easy to use. That's their how. Now, when it comes to the why is so important. The why is why a company exists, its purpose, its belief, and its cause, the reason why it's around. Once we understand and develop that why and are able to push that forward and use that in our sales and marketing, on our platforms, in our design work, in the way we speak, we will be able to connect with so many more users. Yes, users want to understand the what and the how because it's important for their business, but they also need a reason to believe in a brand and a reason to believe in a business so that they feel connected enough to know that they've made the right choice. So for example, Apple, especially when they first came out, their why was they believe in challenging the status quo and innovating. A why is all about connection. It's all about knowing that, being able to show that so that users believe in more than just the what and the how. There's a lot of companies that are doing good things with their whats and good things with their how, but they don't connect, and that lack of connection leads to a lack of trust and a lack of empathy for the users. We want to be starting with why, not starting with what and how. We start with why. We can easily explain what we do and how we do it, but having a strong why is what's going to set us apart as a business. Our brand identity and personality flows down to everything that we do. It flows into the imagery that we use, all the design work that we pull out, that we create. It flows into our visual identity, the way things are designed, the way things look and feel, the way we talk, our tone of voice, the way we speak to people, the way we write blogs, the way we write content, all flows from our brand identity and personality. And finally, our style. That comes from our personality as well. The style that we show, the way we want to show these things, is all driven by that same factor. And now I want to come on to what's happening next in the UX and UI design world, just to let you know what's on the roadmap going forward. It's really exciting times at the moment because we're developing some really interesting and great things going forward. We talked about the common design language that will continue to get developed and evolve and be created. We're looking at how we standardize. We're designing things in a way that is going to last and is going to be implemented and rolled out across all the different platforms and interfaces that we design. So that's happening at the moment. We're also creating a new SchemeServe marketing site that's going to take that common design language and use that to display a new way of displaying this marketing site, a new look, a new feel, something that's much more up to date, much more in line with our brand personality and our values. That's coming soon, and we're working on that currently. We'll be then working on the interface itself and building that and modernizing it and looking at the UX and the UI and upgrading that, looking at ways that we can innovate, we can produce new things, add new features, improve the existing features, create a new style for it visually, but create a user experience that's even more intuitive, that's even more enjoyable to use, and that contains new features that are innovative and new features which help our clients get to where they need to get to and develop their own businesses. We're also developing our brand identity and personality because we really want to let that shine through to be able to create something that is unique in the marketplace, which connects and has empathy for our users, and that engages them in a way that they know that they're understood and they know that SchemeServe is the right business for them to partner with. So we'll be continuing to develop that identity and personality and really showcasing that through all our channels. Thank you for listening to this video. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll send this slide along with the video link for this. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, suggestions, feedback, ideas, I would be more than grateful to hear that. I'm really looking forward to building great connections with everyone who's associated with SchemeServe, and I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.